What's up, guys? Marcellus Williams, aka TheSwolefessor, here to catch you on health, fitness, social well-being. Today I have on the channel Jonnie Candito of HQ Training, and today I'm going to be interviewing Jonnie. And I'm really looking forward to doing this, man, because as we talked about before, you are usually the person where you're interviewing people, asking questions and things like that. And I, for one, have questions that I just personally want the answers to, and I think the audience will enjoy the answers to as well. So I really think you guys are going to enjoy this. But for those of you who may not know who Jonnie is, Jonnie, if you just want to give a brief background on who you are in terms of powerlifting, YouTube, the whole spill.
I started powerlifting in 2011. I remember, I did fairly well initially, and basically from there, I would say I was, one of the early adopters as far as posting about it online, posting about it on YouTube. You're really encouraging people to do it. Like at certain times, I had an explicit goal of wanting to be why someone's favorite YouTuber does powerlifting. That was really my goal. And honestly, everything's gone extremely well to where sometimes I almost forget that I even went to Worlds, honestly, twice in South Africa and in Finland.
Yeah.
In 2014, 2015 as a junior, because things have gotten so much better that I can honestly say I'm far, far more proud of getting top 10 as an open lifter in today's era than I was of getting a silver at Worlds.
No, for sure. And you started your YouTube channel in 2012, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And how to squat with proper form that's my number one hit. It went 2 times platinum, but now it has 2.5 million views, and I would say that those how to squat, how to lift videos are definitely the main thing that I've actually been noticed at an airport once of just are you the dude in the driveway?
Yeah.
I am.
No, that's dope. And what's cool about it for me is, like I said, like unlike many people, including even some of my clients who got into powerlifting from watching your videos, I discovered your videos after I'd gotten into powerlifting already, but already really enjoyed them. That's also why, as I went through your videos, was binging stuff, like that, and I was like, man, no one's actually ever interviewed Jonnie, except for on 2 White Lights on the podcast, but I do believe it's the first one on YouTube. So yeah, man, if you're ready, we're going to just get right into it.
Let's get into it.
All right, man. So, question number 1. At what moment did you fully realize that you loved powerlifting? And when I'm asking that, I mean, at what moment did you decide, okay, is this just something that I'm trying or casual? You're like, I'm all in. I love this. I want to do this. I want to get better at it, become the best at it.
And you mean competing in powerlifting?
Yeah. Not just weightlifting, not strength training, but powerlifting specifically.
I would say probably the moment I got second at nationals in my teen division. Because I did a meet in West Virginia. There was a very local level meet. The first meet I ever did, Jen Thompson was at, which was a very cool experience. But it was interesting because there were still those moments where I'm not sure these are my people type of feeling where you're
the culture,
you're not so sure. And then actually, funny story is my second nationals in Killeen, Texas. I remember I was treated really poorly, in my opinion. And it was one of those moments, and I bombed out as well. And I went with my dad all the way to Texas, and I lived in Ohio. And that was one of those moments where I'm like, if I have another really bad meet, I'm not 100% sure where I'll take it. And then the next meet went very well. 2013 Nationals was really fun. So if I had to pick one where I was in it for life, it probably would be 2013 Nationals. That's actually the first meet that Gino ever announced for Nationals. Which was a cool experience. All the comments were incredibly negative about Gino, and now everyone loves him. So it's kind of cool to grow with him as well. And I would say, but I did love 2011 Nationals. I did really enjoy it. It was just that in between where I wasn't 100% sure that I'd be in this for life. Because I used to be a long jumper, and I was the long jumper who trained, as a power lifter, quote unquote, according to my teammates, even though I think I just trained smarter across the board because I did a lot of sprint and jump training more seriously than they did. But wasn't necessarily as gifted as all of them. I would say the 2013 Nationals was the turning point where it's like, okay, I'm not a long jumper who powerlifts. I'm a powerlifter.
Yeah. So you would say then, because I think a lot of people perceive you as kind of more which I think it's safe to say now that you care a lot more about the information, the content, stuff like that. But at that moment, would you say just how competitive you felt you could be and actually winning and having good meets, that probably had a greater impact on you being involved in it? Meaning if you hadn't done as well, would you say that maybe you wouldn't have stuck with it or stayed with, with it? Yeah. Because actually, the way I started my YouTube channel is I never had a period of getting hundreds of views. I always got 3,000 to 5,000 views because I would post on T Nation and I would say, "Can I make the Olympics?" And I'd just post my squat and I would seriously be wanting to know, "Can I make the Olympics?" And I had a 515, slightly high low bar squat, but it was at 169. So I was and I'm 19 at the time. So I think I've always had the drive
to just say, how far can I go? And if it's no, I want to hear it. Like, someone tell me no. Because if I got second in my division at nationals, I want to find out that that's not true. But then relative to that time, it turned out no, that was pretty good. And it is tough to separate as far as the information, because I definitely was always very controlling of my training. And I think that part did naturally match.
Yeah.
So I literally had a version of the 6-week program in track and did not do a version of Westside while I was a freshman in college. So it's like I was always very motivated to figure out my own training and what I respond best to. But I would say like the 6-week program and all of that did come together only after I felt like I established myself.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I think that's interesting. Because once again, I know for me, if I were to look at your content now, I would just never guess it like, oh, this is someone who used to just really care about being as competitive as possible.
Yeah, exactly.
I would assume it's more so like, oh, he cares about the content. He just so happened to be competitive, more so than it being like, no, that was what was driving you at the moment.
Yeah, there was a moment, I remember there was actually a moment where I talked with my brother where I was like doing Max OT style training, which is Skip LaCour and Jeff Willett's popularized style. And it was like 3 sets of 6 and then 2 sets of 6 on deadlifts. And I remember I was so committed to the idea that I'm just like kicking ass, that my brother was like, how do you know 3 sets of 6 is like the best way to do it?
Yeah.
And I remember just feeling like, are you kidding? Like, look at me. And I think I do think that moment of just like, bro, I'm killing it.
Yeah.
I do think that you almost have to have that bro stage first.
Yeah.
And then you go, okay, is this really applicable to everybody?
Yeah.
And then walk it back. But I think if you go into it with no biases and trying to be as objective as possible everywhere, I do think you probably just won't have the passion.
Yeah, I think that's where the whole aspect of powerlifting isn't something, especially if you're trying to like coach or be informative, it's not enough just to have the knowledge. You have to have a certain amount of experience, which often does come with that competitive endeavor. So no, that's cool to hear, just because, like I said, looking at your stuff now, I don't think a lot of people would guess or assume that. So, but it is nice to know that's where you started. And then, like I said, for me personally, 2019 Nationals, of course, seeing like Russell go up against Sean and stuff like that was cool. What was cool for me was like, so it was Russell going up against Sean, and then my friend David Shelton, seeing him being top 10 83s when he was just the year before 74, and then to see you come back and be able to see that, that was just like, for me, that was the highlight of Nationals. Of course, my boy Michael, coming close against that was cool too. But I think that was probably the class I enjoyed watching the most because of that, like all the different background stories. So awesome, man.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right, so next question. Is there anything that you would go back and change about your powerlifting career?
Definitely the back injury.
Yeah.
That one, very, very clearly. Like, I remember when I hurt my back, that basically set me back. Like, that's when I took my 1.5-year hiatus off YouTube. It was 1 year and 4 months, I believe, to be exact. And luckily, my first video back still got like 25,000 views in a day. I remember uploading that. I'm like, I literally have no idea. Like, I really have no idea. If this gets like 8,000 views or 5,000 or 3,000, whatever, I'm like, that might be it as far as that level at least. So that part, obviously, I just can't rationalize that and say like, oh, I'm glad it happened to me. Yeah. It is weird because you do gain information. But
Sure.
I think the best way to put it is, do I regret how I handled it? Yes. Could I have handled it differently? I don't think so. I just didn't have the information. And a lot of people who aren't familiar with pain science, barbell medicine wasn't even popular at that point.
Yeah.
There's really kind of nothing you can do other than just develop and then pass it on to other people.
Yeah.
So I do specifically actually remember when I hurt my back, there was a time like 2.5 weeks after where I felt like I had no pain. I remember thinking, I think I'm over it. But then because I just had like this outer glute discomfort, it kind of psyched me back out. And now I was testing it a lot. And and then I remember I had one day where I was like deficit deadlifting to try to like immediately get over it. And like I felt a few like pops and crackles and I just wasn't sure. I bet it was just cracking my back. I don't think it was like anything crazy.
Major.
Yeah. Because afterwards that day it didn't feel crazy. But it was like that constant just building of just that negative feedback that you're giving yourself, that feedback loop.
You figure yourself out with it, and that's something that I even experience when I'm working with clients. And it's interesting because I like the way you answered in the sense of, I think most people would answer one of two ways, meaning like, oh no, I don't have any regrets. I learned so much from it. And then other people would be like, yeah, it sucked, I hated it, but I like the fact that you like, you weren't happy about it, but you still acknowledge what you learned from it. Yeah. And honestly, I like not to say that I'm glad you got hurt, but I am very happy with how you, I guess, not how you handled it then in comparison to how you're handling things now, like with your most recent hamstring injury. I think just the compare and contrast between that shows how much you've grown as a lifter. Yeah. And I think that helps people. Yeah. Because I think it's easy to just act like you're the guy that's always had the answers versus acknowledging that, hey, I didn't do this correctly. and now I'm doing it a lot better. And I like seeing that compare and contrast for sure.
Yeah, and I would say it is a unique challenge in, I would say, this era of powerlifting, because also as far as that you go, as far as like myself, Lane Norton, and some of the other earlier guys like Josh Hyduck, I think he had some issues. I think he just never came back. John Downing, I would say, had some issues and kind of never came back. And Josh Hancock as well had some issues, never came back. It's in a weird way, again, this kind of comes back to competitiveness. I like the idea that a lot of people are falling off and I'm not. That honestly is very thrilling to me. Yeah. And it is a unique challenge to learn this information when most of the time when people go through hard issues, it's very well known what to do. Like if you're in debt, you know, okay, here's what you're supposed to do to get out of debt. This was a different thing where since some of this pain science is relatively new and powerlifting is completely new at this point for Raw. Yeah. We kind of didn't know. So it was interesting to develop as a person and to see the industry develop as a whole too.
Sure. I mean, there's a time where people would just tell you, there's a time where if you redo with your hamstring right now, back then they were just like, you're done. Like that's it. Like not even like, oh, what do you do to get better? Like, no, you're done. You're never going to be the same
It'd be assumed that would get imaging, which I didn't even get imaging on that. Right. So I would definitely say that that motivation, because it reminds me of that post I had before where I made primetime Raw Nationals and then nobody on primetime even did 2014 Nationals, which was the last Nationals I did before that, which I thought was really funny. And to me, that's really cool that it's like I am with a completely new peer group. And I get to meet a lot of people who are like yourself, where it's a surprising amount of people who've met me who like, oh, I found you in 2018 or 2019, totally after the comeback.
Because I got into powerlifting like the end of 2015 is when I started. I want to say it was like around September, October is when I first started, and then I did my first meet in November, and even all the way through 2016, it wasn't really until like 2017 when I really started diving deeper into like powerlifting specific type YouTube. I was obviously into fitness and fitness YouTube, but the good news is I liked your stuff as soon as I saw it, so you can take some pride in that.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's great to see everybody in a better situation too. Like I really do love to see everybody deal with injuries better, everybody learn. And I don't want to be a cautionary tale just for life.
For sure. The fact that I think your content itself shows that you care about the growth of the community. So it's obviously to tell that you're very genuine when you say that you do want to see it. And even with you being happy that you're like, hey, a lot of these guys aren't around anymore, it's not so much because you wish harm upon them, but more so you're doing what's right to keep you going.
Definitely, absolutely.
Awesome. All right, next question. If you stopped powerlifting, would you still make YouTube videos? And if so, what about? And I'm very curious about this one, actually.
That's a good question. That's a good... See, here's what I'm going to have to ask you is I need to parse out YouTube versus making videos generally.
Okay.
Do you mean YouTube specifically?
YouTube specifically is what I'm focused on,
Okay, so my answer is probably no, realistically. Now, if I could make fitness videos that would then get similar views and I knew what I wanted to do with those fitness videos, then it would definitely be yes. I love making videos. What I actually think would be more likely would be me making videos for like powerlifters or something, just being a camera guy. Like your boy Mark Harris. Where it's like that honestly is something where I still might do that, just because I want to. And I really like learning about cinematography and all that. Now, the only thing about YouTube is it can be so soulless. With the algorithm. And I do think that's where you see people when they don't have a clear lane, it can rip your soul apart. Like you can imagine if you always saw that, where's your videos rank out of 10? And then it's like, okay, if you make a video about, a vlog and then it gets ranked 9th because it included your mom and no one cares about her. It's like there's a weird feeling to that. And I think that's probably the primary reason why I couldn't tolerate gradually losing views and then just keep making videos that aren't about a mission.
No, absolutely. I think that being passionate about something first is what's so important, which is kind of crazy to think about because so many people are just like, I'm going to become a YouTuber. It's like, oh, what are you going to do? I don't know. I'm just going to start recording stuff and vlogging. Like they have no direction. Like I know for me and my channel from the start, like it's super cringe to me when I go back and watch now, but I will go back and watch my reverse YouTube video every now and then just to be like, this is why I do what I do. Like I was very clear with my goals and what I wanted as far as like, I started the same video off the same way, health, fitness, social well-being. And I feel like for me, even with like, because when I got into YouTube was right before the algorithm change started and stuff like that. So even as a smaller channel, it was actually pretty, if you were putting out good content, you were going to get views and stuff like that. And I was doing very well as far as that. But even when that kind of shifted and slowed down due to the changes, like the fact that like, but I know I'm doing this and I enjoy it. And I mean, we talked before about how we feel like we have that in common. Like it's about the content, helping people first, and then
Yeah.
like when we see the views, it's not just the views, it's the fact that more people are seeing the stuff that we think is good.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Like I would say, and I always say that I think the 6-week program is probably, and it being free is probably the most important thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
It might be, in the end of the day, the most important thing I'll ever do.
Yeah.
Now, we'll see. But yeah, because to me, it's like the idea that of all things in the world, you could help. I mean, maybe I would say my friends would agree. There's probably a few 100,000 people have done the 6-week program.
Yeah.
If you can help a few 100,000 people get in the gym and do a strength program and get stronger, and their bone density increases, confidence increases, and most importantly, you have BMIs in check, things like that, insulin sensitivity, like every benefit that there is to weight training. To me, that is the goal. Like that's there's nothing that's a higher goal than that.
Yeah.
And so I'd say that, and then there's definitely part of me that just wants that like legacy of being like the Jack LaLanne of powerlifting.
Yeah,
just be like, I did everything, and then not necessarily YouTube, but just doing everything for powerlifting around anything. So whether it's a short film or helping, maybe with stage setting, something like that, just aesthetically.
Yeah.
I would just like to be able to use creativity in just a bunch of different ways.
Yeah.
Maybe even graphic design if they have a jumbotron. Like I'd just love to do just things where you're just like, okay, he changed the sport for 50 years.
Yeah.
That's
long-lasting impact that's continuing to help people even maybe when you're done with what you're doing. No,
I want a Wikipedia page on me like, he did this, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Quick side note for that. It's funny because I think like a few weeks ago I was training and there was a kid who was talking to somebody else in the gym. And he's like, I just stopped doing bodybuilding, getting into powerlifting. And the guy's like, oh, what program are you doing? He's like, I'm doing like the Candito 6-week training. And then the guy asked him, oh, who's Candito? And the kid responded, I don't know. But everybody who told me to get in powerlifting said, hey, this is where you start. Yeah. So I think awesome. That type of legacy is awesome. Yeah.
I've seen that in person in a gym in Ohio where someone did not talk to me whatsoever, and I see my program printed out totally, and we just never talked. I don't even know if they recognize me. I think that's super cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Which is funny because I think a lot of people would almost be like offended, like, oh, you're running my program, but you know who I am. But for you, just the fact that
that's what I like.
Program,
I mean, that's what's funny.
Awesome.
Is like I don't want to be like a super famous guy or anything like that. Like that actually is really not my goal. I prefer not to be. And that's why I don't put a lot of personal material out, other than this interview.
Right.
But even then, we were not asking, like, so what car do you drive? What do you do there? And it just gets too much.
What do you look for in a wife?
Yeah, exactly. Where it's like, I like the distance, and I like being like, look, I am here for one goal, and that's to help fitness and powerlifting. Yeah. That's it.
No, absolutely. And that's one of the
for
things
50 years.
That's one of the things that drew me to your channel originally was like I said, I started my channel because so many fitness channels got away from fitness. When I came across yours, I looked at I saw, okay, this is what his old videos were like. I look at your most recent videos, I'm like, all right, this dude's doing the same stuff. I'm with it.
It's funny how it helps you out in the long run, because short term it helps to just vary a lot.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, it's like if you become that guy who does this thing and you are extremely skilled at this, and you know layers that you don't even need to know, then people keep coming back to you.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree, man. All right. Next question. How long do you believe you'll be able to keep competing in powerlifting specifically? So not just lifting, because hopefully you plan to do that to the day you die, but competing in powerlifting.
Until I die. I will do a meet every year as long as I'm living, even if I have stage 4 cancer.
Okay.
100%. Okay. I will 100%. That is actually an explicit goal of mine, is I would do meet no matter what, no matter the federation, no matter the setup. I will always do one meet per year if possible. And even if I miss like a 3-year time period, it will definitely be in that 4th year I'll do meet.
Okay.
Until I'm 80 plus.
And what would you say motivates you to do it? Like why? Why do you want to do that? Like beyond just like obviously just lifting, you want to do that just for health. I mean I think it's going to help you live to be longer. Yeah. I mean live longer. But why do that specifically? Why do you care so much about making sure that you try to do a meet every year possible?
That's a good question. I would say I think it does come down to culture. I think my family's just always been active, and like my brother, for example, was a decathlete 10 years ago, and it's like he still does 5Ks, and he does that, and he really tries to get better, and it's like it's really motivating to him, even though he has a regular job, a house, like he's set on everything else. But in the end of the day, and he'll randomly want to do like a 10-day fast for no reason. Which I was like, I don't know about that.
I'm not sure about that.
But it's very much our mentality, where it's like in the end of the day, you need something to feel alive. And to me, powerlifting is that one thing where it's like no matter what's going on, you can test where you're at. You can test however you want. Like that's what I'll probably do some meets where I'm squatting high bar, ATG, beltless, sleeveless, just to do it.
Just to do it,
And just see like, hey, can I hit 405 at 75?
Yeah. No, I
Why
love
not?
That. No, I love that. I love that. I mean, for me, that is what keeps me in powerlifting personally. It's that. It's like, the social part, the community, the fact that, at this point making a full-time living off it, all that's great. But the main thing that got me in at first was literally just the fact that, like, it's like a video game to me. It's like I can always progress. I can always level up. It's endless, and I love it. Like I say on the channel all the time, like I'm all about contentment and growth with everything. Meaning like you know, I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better coach, a better lifter. But it's so cool to me. I think there's something really cool about being able to directly put in work into something and see the tangible results. Like you know, immediately, pretty much. It's like you know that hey, if I'm staying on top of my eating, my sleeping, training correctly, like I'm going to get stronger. I'm going to get better, and I think that's cool. But I don't think I've ever necessarily, in fact, I've never heard anybody say like that's their important to them. It's like, hey, I want to do a meet every year until I die.
Yeah, absolutely, like that. Yeah. And I do think it will also help because sometimes when people are done with the sport and then they still lift a little bit, then they count what is like, hey, I'm a lifter, but then they don't really lift.
Yeah.
And then you can deteriorate. Whereas if I know to some people it might be depressing to think the exact amount you're deteriorating.
Yeah.
But to me, I actually think I would find it motivating. I really do love numbers. So I would love the idea of like, okay, I squatted 430 last year, and this year I squatted 408. And I'd just be like, I better hold on to 400 again. Like, I better work harder.
I feel like it sets new goals for you almost. Yes. Like, instead of it just being like, just getting stronger, it's like, okay, how much of this can I maintain in the next 5 years?
Yeah. And there are still age classes, too. Like, obviously, people don't necessarily... Here's one thing. I would never go to Worlds as a master. That's no disrespect. I would... Like, to me, it's like, now that's for people who are in their prime to, like, pay for Worlds like that.
Can you imagine, like an 8-year-old trying to, like, still, like, run track in the Olympics or something like that?
Yeah. I have seen some people at AAU track meets who are quite literally like, he's trying to set a record, and then he's just out of shape, and you're like, what? And like everybody's just disappointed. We're like, wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I never want to be that guy. But I would especially. I mean, wouldn't it be cool to do local meets and just kind of kick some people's asses? And they're like, what the hell? Like he's like 69, and he just did some
still working.
Yeah, like I'd say Dave Ricks. Dave Ricks is really inspiring. Anthony Harris. As well as a lot of those guys. Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys are showing that you can be 60 and be very, very strong. Yeah. Nearly your prime.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something else I think is cool, too. I think we're realizing now more and more. And I just had literally just yesterday a conversation in the gym about this where someone's like, yeah, I mean, man, like I'm doing great, numbers are going up, but I'm about to be 30 soon. I'm like, bro, that's great. That's your prime, man. Peak bone density, muscle maturity. Yeah, there you go.
And I what I will touch on, one last thing on this, is also one of the real drivers to me, and this is connected to my YouTube stuff, is I am very driven by being the first or unique in something.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. To me, I see Dave Ricks be really strong till 60. I go, what if I could be the best at 80?
Yeah.
The only guy where you're like, because Dave Ricks is really redefining what it means to be 60 and strong. Yeah. Tony Conyers is the other one I want to mention.
Yeah.
He's still doing very well. And I don't look at it like, oh, this guy did well, so I'm going to do that. I don't need that. Yeah. I want to do the opposite. I want to be like, oh, this guy fell off, and now I'm going to do it 20 years longer. Yeah. After maybe he retires. That's my mentality.
Okay, yeah. And you can see it in your videos too, like just the different things you do, the approach with your editing and stuff like that. It really is unique and makes
thank you. That's exactly what excites me, to do something just a little bit different. And if you didn't do it, nobody maybe would have done it. I love that feeling.
Yeah, it's cool because you get to be the first one to do something, but then you're setting the bar that much higher for others to maybe do something even better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. All right, next question. What is your biggest source of motivation in life?
That's a deep one. Biggest source of motivation.
Yeah. What gets Jonnie Candito out of bed every morning?
Motivation.
Yeah.
Man, that's a tough one. Hold on. I got to drink my water on that one.
Yeah.
Motivation. Motivation to do what?
Man, I think when I'm asking is like just everything you do, right? Like I think you seem to me like somebody where you try to do everything with some type of purpose. Your videos, your competition, even the people you interact with. Just from like the costume you have, it seems like you're very hard line in like who you're willing to interact with and who you're not willing to interact with based upon your values, your beliefs, stuff like that. So I guess my question is like, what would you say is your like what motivates you, what drives you in all of that?
I would say what motivates me is definitely helping other people first, even if I have questions about the meaning of life and anything like that. Independence second. Both of those are pretty irreplaceable. Independence is definitely a huge one. So, it does terrify me at the idea of that if I fell off, that then I would have to work for someone else and be in a different situation. I would hate that. That would give me nightmares. So I would say those two things, and like what we talked about before. For myself, what has helped me is acting as if people might live forever.
Yeah.
And I myself, you know this, better than my audience does, is that I've used to be a hardline atheist, and then then I basically reached a point when I made my 6-week program. I was like, look, I don't think I'll ever be fully happy as much as I was before, because now I really don't believe any of this matters.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make the 6-week program and do something that I'm like, okay, regardless, I objectively helped people, and then they can be happy, and then I'll just figure out, I don't know, maybe I will never figure it out.
Yeah.
But I think now I've been, more compelled to believe that at least it's possible. And that's partially due to Thomas Aquinas, who's one of my favorite authors. Yeah. Who I have not read much of him, though, to be very clear. And I just find it compelling that there's something deeper out there. And that does connect to my level of motivation, especially after my hamstring injury. Yeah. Where it does feel like it's a little bit less about myself and a little bit more about a bigger purpose. But like I said, I still wouldn't say I have an explicit, belief in some, in a certain religion or certain, set of values yet. I would say I have Christian values for sure. Yeah. But I would not say, I'm sure on what I believe as far as doctrine, know. But until then, my best view is it's almost like Pascal's wager, but applied to helping people. Is regardless if you help people and then it ends up being like, well, none of this mattered, then you still help people, it's whatever. And I think psychologically we know that's beneficial to give to others, even if it's just from a selfish perspective. Yeah. But then I do think there's a significant chance that maybe there is something deeper to helping people. And, at the very least, I would like to take that leap first, lead with empathy, and then figure it out after the fact. Yeah. So that definitely is motivating to me, though. And that has motivated me more now than before. Yeah. So it is weird how you can have totally different views. Because when I made the 6-week program, I was kind of more depressed and then made it. Whereas now I'm very fulfilled, but then keep going. Yeah. And I do think that's it's a tricky thing.
Do you look back at things when you were kind of like not in the mindset yet now, but appreciate them more with your current mindset, you would say, such as the 6-week program? Like, for example, when you said when you wrote the 6-week program that, you were kind of more in like a more depressed state of mind than what you are now. Whereas now you say like you feel like you do things with a little bit more purpose and stuff like that to help people. Would you say that with your current mindset, you can look back on things you did before you had this mindset and value them more, such as the 6-week program?
Yeah. Well, see, the thing is, I did always value the success of the 6-week program a lot. Yeah. Even when I didn't know what was up. And that's why it's a funny feeling, because it's like no matter what, when you help people, things do start to add up in a way that maybe you don't expect. Yeah. Like, it's very weird that, when you dedicate a period of time to just like really trying to help people, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, now life's totally easier in a way that's, at least with myself, maybe I am lucky that I've always been the type of person who's more talented than the effort they put in. And so when maybe it's just when I'm motivated to do something, I'll do well. I don't know. Like maybe I'm biased in that way, because maybe someone who's less genetically gifted at certain things wouldn't have that response. But it does seem to oddly work, doesn't it? Like and I think that, so I think the way it is it's more the appreciation was always there. And then it starts adding up to where, okay, maybe there's...
And the appreciation gets deeper and you might connect it to something. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's just weird. And and obviously there's like the post hoc fallacy and all this stuff. Yeah. And survivorship bias, all these thoughts. Sure. But it definitely gets weirder, and it definitely feels... and not feels, because it's not like just a feeling. Yeah. There's definitely something to it when you treat people as just their own agent. Like I think that's always been fundamental to me, is treating people like how if I was them, what would I want someone to do? If I remember being on YouTube watching videos, and I would love to hear a free program or hear what someone does, and that's the fundamental beginning of it. Yeah, it's just really caring about people, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean, as a Christian myself, man, we're all about treat others the way that you want to be treated. Treat them like as if they were created in God's image. So I mean,
and as an end and rather than a means. I do I actually will say, because I think a lot of people hear what you're saying and think that like, well, that's basically what everybody does, what every society, and a lot of societies do have their version of the golden rule. Sure. But I know for a fact, I know YouTubers where they will talk about things more as like, okay, but I have to do this to get views, to get here.
Instead of just doing it because it's like, that's it.
A lot of people then rationalize whatever they're doing. Yeah. And then say, well, in the end of the day, I'm going to help people. So if I have to show off my body or show off my girlfriend's body, or have a really misleading title, it's okay because it's growing my channel. And in the end of the day, what they're going to get someone else who's also BS, and I'm less BS. Yeah. And to me, I would rather just be straight myself. Yes. Probably the only thing would be what we've talked about with the thumbnails, that you do have to put some sauce on thumbnails. Sure. But you don't lie. And if you never lie like that, at least in my perspective, you can be happier with yourself. And then wherever the chips fall, that's fine.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you end up having better interactions, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's better because I think when you take that more genuine approach, keep your integrity intact. One, you just go to bed at night and wake up in the morning, like look in the mirror and be like, hey, I'm good, right? But beyond that, and I even take that same approach like with coaching and stuff like that, like the time and quality I give like that. I do it from the standpoint of like, it's not just about, if I do it this way, I'll get better retention or I'll get more clients. It's just the right thing to do. To me, it's the right thing to do, and it keeps me consistent. And I do it because it's right, even without the benefits. And the fact that those benefits happen, it's just a nice bonus. And I don't necessarily think it's a coincidence that when you see them go about things in this type of way, that you get those benefits. But, it is.
I mean, and there are a lot of situations. Like I'll give you one specific situation. Actually, this will be good for people here since they're going to be completely unaware of this.
Yeah.
And also, this is going to involve Nick Wright, and it's not at all an insult to him. I actually don't even know if he knows about how this went down. It was on Muscle and Strength or some like decent magazine website where they said like, hey, we want to do an article about your 6-week program, and like, hey, can you help us put it together, blah blah blah. And I just didn't really want to because it's like, why? It's on my site, it's free. Like, and I just don't like the idea of like, okay, so I'm just going to dish it off to a corporation that's like not paying or anything. It just seems weird.
Sure. And
then what's funny is then Nick Wright was running the 6-week program. And then he had a version of my 6-week program on their site. So they literally went straight to him then. And then he explained how I do the program. And I don't think he did it maliciously at all.
Right.
I'm sure he doesn't even know about this, doesn't even remember. But that was a good situation where, that's where if you're more about, if you're not about helping people directly, that can bother you. That doesn't bother me. Probably a very slight amount is their ego.
Sure.
But that did not bother me to any point to where I'd want to confront anyone or do anything. I'm like, sure, that helps people still.
Yeah.
So it is different when you're like, if something helps people and you truly not only don't make money, but don't even get recognition.
Right.
It's great. It's fine. And I do think that actually does add up in tangible ways because then you don't have conflicts over meaningless stuff.
Yeah. I feel like it's a less stressful way to live. Like when you know your why, you have your why, and so long as that's not being interfered upon, you're good. You can move and operate how you want. Exactly. I think it gives you more freedom. I think a lot of people feel like, if you have this many values and this and that, it's restrictive. I think it's free because I know how I'm going to move, and I'm not so quick to be controlled by circumstances or what everybody else is doing just because it's popular. Yeah. So I 100% agree with that.
And also one thing I will add that I don't think you have the same views on animals as I do, and I'm a little bit more of a softie. Yeah. It's actually when growing up, I would literally be the kid who's constantly saved worms over and over again. I saved, truly probably 1,000 worms. And one time, my brother convinced me to step on a worm and just stomp it, and I'll never forget it. I regret it to this day.
It's like my first murder.
So I definitely have always naturally been empathetic, and to me, it's very intuitive to just imagine if I was them and they were me. Like, it's just, that to me is very intuitive, and it would almost need to be beaten out of me. Yeah. And, I definitely say going to Catholic school and being in an environment where there's no bullying, there was a lot of people really cared about each other, even teachers you don't like would still be respectful to you. Yeah. A lot of that does go a long way.
Yeah. I think it's where, we say, regardless of what you believe outside, I think those values matter. I definitely agree with you as far as that.
Absolutely.
Awesome, man. Love these answers. Like I said, for me, I'm enjoying this. Like I said, these are things that I wanted to ask you, so it's cool. All right, next question. How do you feel when lifters tell you they got into the sport because of you? How do you feel when a lifter has never heard of you? So those two kind of contrast.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think this connects to the helping people thing, where I definitely never feel like how dare you not know me? Like you're obliged to know me. I definitely never feel that. But if someone says that they got into the sport because of me, that definitely is a very gratifying feeling, especially if they have a healthy mindset with it. Now, because a good point is if they got into sport because of me and then they're frustrated at it, then admittedly I care more about their health and their mindset and them being happy. Yeah. And then powerlifting being as useful of a conduit as possible for that purpose. Overall, in my experience, almost every time meeting someone, it is actually a really weird feeling where it always feels like they know me in a sense. Yeah. And usually they do say, I act the same way as I do on videos, which,
that's the best compliment ever. I think that's the best compliment ever.
Yeah. And I will say the coolest part is I've always been the type where I've always been a loner. I've never had many friends. I've had many periods of having quite literally no friends. to this day, it's you, Sean, and a few others. There's not too many others. Especially in Ohio. I really don't have any friends outside of my family a lot of times, and it's just naturally what happens since I'm a very introverted person. And to me, it's always very surreal when I meet people who I can very clearly tell I'm like, you're really similar to me. Because it's like, I really am a guy where I'm online a lot.
Yeah.
I am that type of person. And then again, it only further connects that feeling that it's like, you could be me and I could be you.
Yeah, and it's a cool connection because to kind of take it back, because I mean, I think when he was still here earlier in the week, you and Michael were talking like for hours. I think one night, like 4 a.m. You said like you really like enjoyed talking and felt like someone you've always known. Well, what's really cool to think about is I think about the fact that Michael got into powerlifting because of your channel.
Yeah,
and if he had never done that, he never would have found me or my channel or approached me. And Michael and I became friends first before I started coaching him. Really? So it's crazy to think about the fact that had you never started your channel, he wouldn't have found your channel. He wouldn't have found me. So not only would he not be my client, but that's a whole friend. Like Michael is like one of my best friends, and like awesome. To think that wouldn't have happened in those connections. Now you and I are friends. You know what I mean? So I think that's cool. In the sense of not so much from like I'm like, oh, people know me because I'm famous, but like you're basically creating connections without even realizing it. And I think that's
awesome. Yeah. There's one guy where he said he met his wife somehow through my channel, and like somehow they both met. And moments like that to me are exactly what it's about. And it's really hard to even like put into words how it feels, because it feels so, in a way it feels so unreal, but in a way it also does feel exactly like what I imagined. Like it really, and I know it sounds arrogant, but it's like I've been in conversations where people are like, nobody cares about powerlifting. I'm like, literally thousands of people care. I know for a fact. And then it like I do really pick up steam out of this anger almost at how much people are dismissive of what they're doing. Yeah. Like I think what we're doing matters very clearly.
Absolutely.
And I do think that extends then to behavior, because if you think what you're doing matters, you're going to behave like it matters. Yes. Like if you made a mistake, no, you don't get a pass.
Yeah.
And that's how, hopefully that's how I act.
Yeah. No, I can assure you that's exactly how you come across, man. So no, that's awesome. All right. What do you think your biggest contribution is to powerlifting?
To powerlifting as as a sport, as an activity.
Powerlifting, I would say, as an activity, like the culture of powerlifting, like just as a whole. I'm like, think more broad. Like, what do you think like is your biggest contribution to powerlifting? Period.
I have a good one for that. I would say but you are not saying competition. You're saying
no. It can include competition. Right. Yeah.
Okay. I would say, in my opinion, my biggest contribution to powerlifting was the amount of shout outs I did early on to other lifters. Because I would post about Gibbs so much, I would legitimately lose followers sometimes. And I would tell them, I'm like, if I'm going to lose followers over posting too much about IPF guys, then I'll do it. I don't care. And the reason why I say that is because I think it connects to what you said about Michael, is I think that's the type of stuff that has the biggest butterfly effect, where you're like, you don't know what's going to happen or what an alternative world would be where lifters don't shout each other out as much. And I would say that was around a time where it was not as common. I think now we see it as, now it's very normal for people to know each other and everything's growing. But I mean, I remember there was a time when I posted John Hack. I said he's, in my opinion, the most underrated lifter in the world, because he just held 17:08, which was the unofficial world record at that time. And it's with the deadlift bar, but it was drug tested. And I remember Elgin of Elgin Intensity commented like, he's not overrated, he's properly rated because the market, blah, blah, blah. Gave like a very, kind of like factually true statement in a way, but not really true, especially given John now has, 120,000 followers or whatever on Instagram. Right. More Instagram followers than I do.
Right.
But that was a time when John, I think, probably had like 10,000 or actually probably less, probably like 4,000 or something, I would imagine. But I think moments like that where it's like just pushing people forward to go and like, I care, and if I have this attention now, I hope you care more and you keep doing your thing. Yeah. And then I think, because then you can't put a limit on people. Whereas a program, I think every program, training style, idea has a shelf life. Sure. Whereas the effect of individuals does not.
Yeah, that continues.
So the effect, right? It's like the fact that Sean Noriega doing his thing, and then other people get affected by his coaching, and then he was affected by me and Lane Norton. I think that's where you can't contain that, and for that I would have to put that number one.
Yeah, no, that's a good answer, because honestly, I didn't know how you're going to answer it, but I feel like a few people watched probably would have guessed, probably would have said the 6 week program or like, just the YouTube channel as a whole. But I think it's cool how you circle it back to it comes back to people still.
Yeah, because I think you can always debate whether the 6 week program is great or should it be like this, or because at the end of the day, it's always comparative. I think it was definitely the best program at that time relative to 531 and all that. And I still think it's a very good program. I still totally stand by it. Yeah. But there's always room to debate. There's always it's basically just a matter of effectiveness still. I will say though, maybe normalizing free programs, that one's close, because just the fact that when I did it, at least I don't think anybody was doing free powerlifting programs like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would still say the people one, because in the end of the day, like, you can argue with the race, basically the race to the bottom. You could say, well, people would eventually make free stuff to get people into more paid stuff or whatever, which some people do. But the one thing, like I said, you can't really push down is the value of a guy like Gibbs getting a platform, a guy like Hack, which I'm not saying I gave them a platform or anything crazy, but just showing that, like, hey, if I'm like, I looked up to Matt Ogus so much. If I'm in Matt Ogus's position, I know I get to then help other people, and to me, that's what it's all about.
And that promotion can create potentially just so many more ideas and avenues for other people.
Yeah,
and have more people doing
literally help me. Yeah, I mean, that's what's funny. It's literally helping. Like now, Sean's giving me tips on hook grip, really helping me. I mean, I would not have the same total if I didn't have a lot of these people, and even like Michael's progress on bench.
Yeah,
the fact that I will now have clients bring up like Michael's progress on bench, talking to me, and then Michael started because of me. It's very symbiotic. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Next question. What do you dislike the most about powerlifting today?
Definitely the politics of the federations.
Yeah.
For sure. The lifetime membership stuff, the IPF, the way the IPF has an exclusive partnership with SBD.
Yeah.
Which we won't get into too much, but I was not impressed with their deals with Ashton Ruska and how they talk to him. I find that stuff again does kind of motivate me.
Yeah. Because
anytime lifters are kind of pushed away for their worth, and then there's very limited amount of options.
Yeah.
That's really motivating to me to be like, no, there is a better way to do this. I promise you. If you feel like you're debating for scraps, get out of the room. Stop. Like, just get out and go to someone else.
Yeah.
So I'd say probably that number one is the way I think the USAPL and IPF are honestly headed in the wrong direction. And that as someone who's really built the reputation off of being like, hey, I'm that guy for the IPF and USAPL, it is a little weird to see. But at the same time, all I could do is react to what's happening now. And, like I said, I don't think, right now I know I don't support the USAPL at all. I'll never do another USAPL meet, ever. And so that part is, a little bit of a negative. But I think the beautiful thing, at least in my experience, is that whenever I'm like this amped up about something, I tend to be right. And that's, I know that's an arrogant statement, but I think the way you're seeing people progress with the showdown, the way people are entertaining other options, I don't think I'll be wrong. But I am risking, if I'm wrong and the USAPL is just the most popular thing for the next 30 years, then I'll accept, there's going to be a significant negative on me.
Sure.
But I think the fact that I'm willing to take that risk because I know what they're doing is wrong on principle, I do think will motivate people to just reassess, like, wait a second, and then the momentum, I think, will start to shift. And then it'll just be more rational for someone to leave because there will be better competition and all that eventually.
Yeah.
But I think it always starts with principles first.
Yeah. No, I respect that. And I think that's what I respect about it the most, the fact that, like you said, for the longest time, that's what I knew you as. Like, oh, Johnny's going to do that. He's always going to be for USAPL. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I remember, like you said, back in 2018, when my friend Derek and I, like, when they had the camera ban, stuff like that, and we were both set, qualified, ready to go to nationals, and when that happened, we're like, we're not going. We're just like for me, and still to say, I care about YouTube, and I'm like, if I want to go, I should be able to like record for YouTube, and just on principle, it's just like, YouTube or not, I should just be able to record. I'm already paying money to go to this meet. I'm paying money to the Fed. I should be able to record stuff. So I remember that we did not go that year. So I think the fact that despite how pro USAPL IPF you've been, that you're letting your values and principles lead you first. Yeah. As we talked about before, I always think that's the most important thing. Yeah. Regardless of what happens the next 10, 15, 30 years with USAPL or not. Yeah. Like so, and I think it's also good that you're willing to acknowledge that, hey, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But based upon what's going on right now and my principles right now, this is the direction that I have to move. Because I feel like a lot of people in your position would not do that and aren't willing to do that. Yeah. So I respect that a lot.
Yeah, and it always comes down to like how good of a deal is it if you could remove yourself from the situation completely, and does it make sense especially with someone, because even with someone like, let's say, starting out like how I did, where if someone's starting out how I did, where I'm 19 or 18 years old, my dad's recording me, throw it up on YouTube, it feels, really cool, and I'm like, hey, yeah. I remember that was back when I would train high bar exclusively and then compete low bar. Just because like I thought, hey, that's how you just get a leverage advantage. Just that like innocence, kind of bliss feeling. And then we had a big American flag in the background, which actually is kind of cooler than any other setup still to this day. And I just can't in good faith go like, okay, I've made it to the level that I'm happy. If I just want monetary goals and all that stuff, I am satisfied with like the level of popularity I'm at, and then I could, if I wanted to, I could just pay to. Well, they don't make it to where you can pay to record yourself, but you could find a way, like Russ did, to get a meet video of yourself, especially if you're more popular. But I know that kid who's just going to have his dad record for fun will not be able to. Yeah, and it's like that to me. That to me is beyond wrong. That's like it would be like if you got into a country and then you're like, we should cut off all immigration whatsoever, and right after you immigrated. It's like, okay, like you're kind of, there's something wrong there if that's like your total worldview is like the moment I get it, nobody can have it. Get in, which by the way, that statement is very literal and not meant to apply to like anything beyond that.
No political. It's like only talking about powerlifting politics right now. No, I agree though. It
has nothing to do with my actual stance on immigration or anything specific or any allusion to anything. It's just the principle of saying I benefit from something, and the moment I do, none of it will be allowed. And again, it what it really does is it seals a hierarchy. It says like, okay, so now if you're in it, you can maybe have some connections. You can pay for a media pass, and then whoever is friends with the USAPL will have that media pass. I mean, I'm sure it's no coincidence that the 9 for 9 Media, for example, they're friends with the USAPL, and he's competed in the USAPL. Could a better photographer have gotten that who doesn't even do powerlifting? Probably not. That's probably why my meat video looked like dog shit. Like it really is. Like, and it's just it's bad on principle, but it's also bad business. And when it's both at the same time, I'm like, don't do it. Don't, to regular people, don't do it. Now to a guy like Russ, to guys like Sean, they have to make their own decision. But I know if I think it's bad for the average person, I'm not going to support it, because in the end of the day, I know the point of my channel is to relate to people and to just go, this is what I think you should do. If I'm making these free programs for people who just could be me, then I should act in all ways as if that could be me. Not as if like, hey, I'm Jonnie Candito, so I get to maybe sneak in recording myself. Which I never tried, but I would guess I would have a shot at it. If I really like, hey, I'll get sponsored by SBD and then go that way. Like, no. No, it's awesome. Like, I mean, a lot of people say that like, oh, I represent the common man, or I'm for the people, whatever. But then they completely distance themselves from them based upon their actions. Their actions are not consistent. It's like you have to accept actual possible loss, where it's like maybe it will be a negative effect to not be in a stream. That last Nationals, got like 70,000 views on a stream. Like maybe that will be a negative effect. Maybe everybody will continue to compete in the USAPL, and Angelo and all those guys will keep progressing and pushing the sport forward while I'm just over there in some local meet. That might happen. I don't care. So it's like you really do have to have that feeling of, it's like when people complain that, hey, you're supposed to show your body to get, or you have to show your body to get likes. It's like, then don't, and get less likes. And deal with it. Like, that's exactly what you have to deal with, right? That's true. I think that's what principles are about.
I think the problem is people always feel like, once again, they let the goal dictate them, not the principle. Meaning, whatever it takes to get to this goal, whatever I have to sacrifice, whatever I have to give up, I'm willing to do it. And I mean, personally, me, I think that's sick. But I mean, I think
that does come back to the Christian ethics to some extent. As far as like you're not doing things for effect. You're not looking at it from a predetermined point of view. And that's why it's like, even I don't know where I stand on a lot of those things as far as I really don't even care about like free will debates and stuff like that. I know a lot of people who take a different perspective and then they keep running with it until they start to almost view everybody as a cog in the machine. And you can make an argument for that, but the moment you really start to believe that, a lot of times I think you start acting in ways that just aren't admirable.
You have to treat each individual as that individual and treat them with respect. And even when you're talking about like, your collective audience on YouTube, you are thinking about like that 15, 6-year-old kid who just wants to go do his first meet and wants to be able to record freely, or whatever it may be. And I think that matters, because at the end of the day, we can't, especially in our sphere as like both coaches, where of course we get paid to do what we do. We're trying to help our clients, but as informative YouTube channels where we claim to care about people, we have to have consistency with that. Because the moment I feel like we're willing to give on any aspect of it, the moment you just slip up a little bit, like, this isn't that bad, the whole thing just caves in. Because then you're going to start slipping up more and more and more because the offers to do so and the benefit you may potentially get, what comes to gain with that, just becomes more and more and more. And you can justify it a little bit more every single time until you're a completely different person than where you started.
I mean, when I was brand new on YouTube, it's like I got offers like literally to do like gay porn immediately. Stuff like that. It's crazy. It's like, for real, but it's like, what's funny is it's like, it's kind of, I mean, it's very funny now. As far as like it's ridiculous, but it's like when you are legitimately broke, and it's like when you get a disproportionate amount of attention from like very weird sides of the internet, it's a very strange feeling. Like it's a very it is a feeling to where it's like it's one of those things where obviously for myself it's like not tempting at all, but it's like I get it. It makes you get it to where like I get how people were maybe be misled and go down a path that's a little bit objectifying.
No, absolutely, man.
It's like scary,
and that's what's interesting about it. It's like. Because I think a lot of people would take what you just said, like, I get it, and use it as justification, like, oh, he understands it, so that can make me feel a little bit more better about it. But I'm kind of like, using myself for example, right? So when I first started coaching and stuff like that and got into YouTube, I remember people telling me, like, hey, you're going to have to do this and that if you want to, like, make this much money, and, like, you're going to have to, like, take on, like, hundreds of clients and do this and that, and, not going to be able to give attention, just focus on the best ones, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff, right? And I already told myself from the start, if I have to do it that way, I'm just going to quit. Like, it's just that simple.
Absolutely.
But being at the point that I'm at now, right, like, with, I'd say relatively successful in coaching, right, and getting those emails, stuff like that, I get the temptation. I get the temptation of like, wow, I could take on just 20 more people right now, make this much more money, and, maybe the quality drops a little bit, but there's so many ways I could justify it, right? Like, I can take care of myself, I can take care of, like, my wife, things like that. But it's like, I get the temptation, but for me, the fact that I get it and still say no is why I do not tolerate other people doing it. Like, there's no excuse for it, because like I get the temptation and I'm able to say no, so I know you're able to say no. That's how I look at it.
One exception I will have to this is if you already have leverage.
So
if someone already has leverage and then they're still playing those games of let's say objectifying themselves for the internet, which is obviously a huge issue in fitness. It's almost impossible to avoid. I think if you already have leverage, you already have respect, and then you keep doing it just for extra money beyond, let's say, $100,000.
Right.
Then to me, that's when, that's more just that person's fault. Like that is just actual greed. Whereas to me, what I feel bad for is, early on when you don't have leverage, and it is where you're just trying any way to break it. So that part I definitely empathize with.
No, I get that for sure. I guess ultimately what it comes down to is, that's why having those principles instilled in you first matters, because the moment you step into it, whether it's because like you just feel like you're between a rock and a hard place, you're just trying to get there, I feel like that can potentially lead to the excessive just greed as well anyway, that's
a really good point. And it reminds me of one of the things that people would not expect this to stick with me is C.T. Fletcher said, he's like, what's the worst that can happen? Am I going to be homeless again? I've already been homeless. I'm fine. And it's like that mentality to me is, because I mean, when I was during my break, I was like, there was literally a time during my break with my back injury where I'm like, should I work at Buc-ee's a little? Like straight up, should I just work at Buc-ee's right now, just in between time? And it was like, I was right going to get to that point. And then luckily when I came back, interest was super high. And I always was coaching in that, but it's like it's very hard to coach when your mind is somewhere else as far as your own confidence.
So
so overall I would say I definitely really empathize with that, like trying to make it. But I think it's better to stick to your guns and what you think is right. And if it comes, it goes. And if I'm not popular 3 years from now, whatever. But I do think it definitely helps that it's like, well, it seems like when you're principled, it's going on longer than I think a lot of other situations where people burn really hot and then burn out.
And I think closing thoughts on that, I think it's because I feel like people can just tell. I feel like people deep down, as much as we're like, oh, you got to, be half naked to get views and this and that. I do feel like there's always just going to be a group, because here's the thing. Those people who really just want to see, like, the fitness influencers naked, or want to see you do like this random challenge or whatever, it's fleeting. Like, they only care about you in the moment, and then they're done. But when you're actually putting out stuff that's beneficial to people, that helps people, those people will stick with you. I really do believe that, like 100%.
And I want to be very clear that like I'm not trying to talk about myself as if like I'm better than other people or anything like that, or anything like that, or as I'm like overly certain. I definitely have my doubts. Like we talked about the religious stuff before. Like I would say I'm really a mix between a deist and a theist at this point, and I used to be an atheist. And so I'm like in between, where I definitely believe in something, and maybe interactive, maybe simulation theory, I think could connect to like actual active theism or some sort of afterlife. I think would be more likely than without it. But that's kind of my worldview is very. I still question a lot of things, but the one thing that seems very obvious to me is no matter your talent level, no matter the effectiveness, what you can certainly do is deliberately be helpful or be kind.
Yeah, absolutely.
And at the very least, you go, okay, I did that, and then the rest, I'll see what happens. And that's very much. So I want to be clear that I'm not saying like I got this place because I'm a better person than a lot of people.
Sure.
That's definitely not my mentality.
Sure. No. I think you made your point very clear as far as where you
just
stand
the principles.
with it. Yeah, and I feel like most people, regardless of their backgrounds or beliefs, would agree with that.
Okay.
So I respect that.
Thank you.
All right. Next question: who is the most impressive lifter of all time in your opinion?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah,
I'd say Ray Williams.
Yeah.
To me, that one's very clear. I think because I'll never forget, like especially as someone who's been to basically every meet on his come up. I've been to. I've seen Ray squat in Romaleos, which a lot of people have never seen.
Yeah.
I've seen just the fact that I've seen that. I've seen him miss on bounce doing that, squatting like 880. I think is what he ended with. And I've seen Ray then squat in South Africa, squat 909. I remember here's why I'll say Ray's the most impressive lifter of all time. I remember Ray squatted more than Don Reinhardt did without wraps. This was tested or untested. When he squatted, I believe it was 909. I think Don Reinhardt squatted 905. Now, he did it actually without sleeves and without wraps. But that was the record across all divisions. It was like Eric Lillibridge was kind of coming up on that. But Don Reinhardt did that like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Ray beat that as a natural. And then he squatted 200 pounds more.
Yeah.
And it's like the fact that he did that,
Yeah.
to me, I don't think that there's any achievement that's better than that.
Yeah.
That 490 kilo squat. Now, obviously, I wish he squatted 500 kilos. I wish he was able to get that just round number. But I think the way he established the sport and then kept going, and I've said to Ray in my interview with him, I said like he's part of the reason why I came back to powerlifting too, because it was like he really carried the sport in a way that was inspiring.
Yeah.
And it felt like a moment. It's like when you see Usain Bolt in track where you're like, I don't know where this is going, but I want to be there. If I could get to Beijing, if I'm anywhere in the area, okay, I'll pay extra just to get there because this is one of those few moments that may not come again.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Yeah, I see. I had a feeling that might be your answer just because I did watch your interview with Ray.
Yeah.
But just wasn't sure. And that's something I was like, for someone who's been involved in the sport as long as you have, and you've seen people come and go, and you see kind of what the gene pool is like, how it's expanded. I thought, getting your view on that would be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Next question. What are some things you believe every lifter should do with little to no exceptions?
Ooh, little to no exceptions.
Yeah.
Every lifter should do with little to no exceptions.
Yeah.
Record themselves. That would probably be the number one. And I know that seems obvious now, but there was a time in 2017 where I took a Twitter poll of like how many of you record yourselves.
Yeah.
And I remember it was still like 60% didn't of people who watch YouTube. And that's the one concern I have. And again, this connects back to like the everyman priority. It's like I do want to make sure powerlifting doesn't become like, okay, now all these guys who are, superstars record themselves all the time and get that benefit.
Yeah.
And then someone who's a regular person in a commercial gym feels like, well, I'm not good enough to record myself, or that's weird.
Yeah.
And that is a big thing because I still remember training commercial gym. I still train commercial gyms quite often. When I am not training at home. And there is that feeling of like, okay, maybe what are you doing? Why are you recording yourself?
That culture definitely still exists. I know for a fact it does. Like I see it experience even in my gym sometimes. Like certain people, not so much in the powerlifting area, but if you're like in the more like bodybuilding general portion, like you'll see some people and people like, oh, why is this person recording themselves? So, and it's like, why not? Like one, it's not harming you at all, and it's only benefiting them. But especially in commercial gym settings when someone's trying to set their record a squat, stuff like that. I've even seen people like just purposely like look at the person, see the recording, and also like, this guy thinks he's too good, and like walk in front of the camera, which to me is just completely disrespectful. But
yeah. So I have a good second one that I know for sure is I think if any lifter is ever in the position where their total is increased by 100 pounds, which a lot of people are in that position, especially earlier on, I think every single lifter should compete before it gets beyond that. Because I think that's one of the classic mistakes is that they have that increase and it goes, they're going to increase up 100 pounds. And then they try to go 120, 150 pounds. Then they compete and they really just added maybe 65 pounds because they missed all their thirds. Because there's no perspective.
Yeah.
So I would say the more lifters compete maybe 3 times a year, I think generally is better than competing like once a year. And I still do think that's a big one that a lot of people still fall into, is competing very infrequently because they see it as like something I'm building up to. It's like, no, get into meet, get better at doing meets, get comfortable. And actually, this will be my third one. This leads into it. Is when you get to a meet, I think one of the things that helped me get way more clutch, especially going 9 for 9, now a disproportionate amount, is when you get to a meet, walk around the platform. Walk on the platform, look around. Don't put headphones in right away. Just walk around, look around, go on especially when they have the squat already set up.
Yeah.
Then walk around, walk up to the bar, walk back, look around, and gain spatial awareness.
Get a feel for it. Okay,
yes, I absolutely. I think that has massively helped me. Because before I'd listen to music, then you go out and it's like this new
it's a whole different sphere.
Look, right, where you're like, whoa, where you don't even know how far the seats are from you until you see it. Then people are staring at you. Get used to people staring at you.
That's awesome. Yeah. So like you said, the first one's one that hopefully becomes more obvious. The second one's something I definitely agree with. I try to tell my clients, if possible, at least try to compete 2 times a year if possible. I never force them to, of course, but if they're able to, and I've even heard Chance Mitchell talk about that as well, as far as like, hey, don't wait and just build up, do more lifts more frequently when you first start. But that last one, I've never even thought about that.
Dude,
but I have experienced. I've experienced it where it's like you go up, and I think that's why so many people say, if I can just do that first squat, then I'm good. Because after you do that first squat, you've experienced it, you see everything, so then you're a little bit more okay. I'm good. But that's a good tip. I think I'm gonna do it for my next meet.
Definitely. That's awesome. Yeah, and being at meets, I can definitely tell. Like, not many people do it, where you're walking around, and then even if you feel something weird in the platform, you feel then and not on that first squat.
You're prepared for it. No, that's an interesting tip.
Yeah.
All right, next. So kind of in the same vein, what are some things you believe every coach should do with little to no exception?
Cap the amount of clients would be for sure, and probably cap it more than a lot of people do.
I'd say that. I would agree with that.
Yeah, like I think there's certain numbers where I remember there was well, how many would you say, first of all, is like the most that you see as far as clients where you're like, okay, that you can handle, but more is a little crazy?
Yeah. So for me personally, I think a lot of it depends on how you go about it. So for me right now, as far as like just like full coaching clients, I never work with more than 60 at a time.
Then how many?
60 at a time. That's it. That's my max.
My example is literally going to be someone saying 70 plus, so it's nice.
But for me, it's because it's at I think if you just get that many at a time at once, I think you're screwed. But I think it's about how you go about it. Like, so for me, when I first started, I was like, okay, let me get to 20. And then when I got that down, I'm like, okay, let me push to 30. And I stuck with 30 all the way until 2020. Because at that point, I'm like, okay, I've been working with these same 30 individuals, and I'm good. It's a lot easier. It's a lot smoother. So then after that's when I was like, okay, let's slowly build up to 50. Because I believe I can do that. I do this full-time. There's no big difference. Do you do this full-time, part-time? How much time can you put into it? Like, this is my full-time job. Coaching, for me, always comes first before everything else. But even when I say, okay, I'm going to expand to 50, I only would take on like 3 to 5 at a time and really get them down packed for like three months or so. Then take on another, and then eventually I'm like, okay, I think 60 for me is the cap where I can know the quality with my current clients and my new clients stays high where it needs to be. I'm not shortchanging myself because I am the type of person where I'm going to shortchange myself before my clients. Meaning I'll start like, not eating enough, not sleeping enough, shortchanging my sessions. And then of course, I'm married, I have a wife, so I had to think about like my time with her as well. But for me, I would say like, honestly, 30 is probably going to be where a lot more people can actually be, depending on level of interactiveness. For me, especially like with my level of interactiveness, like where it's like 24-hour communication, the check-ins, the blog and stuff like that, 50 to 60 is about where it's going to be. I don't think I'll ever expand beyond that. And unless God forbid my wife leaves me, then I might have a little bit more time. Then maybe I can play with 65, 70. But I would say like, I think when you get beyond 50 or 60, it's you're either just not at a certain level of quality that you're even to begin with, or that quality is going to go down. That's just really what I believe.
Yeah, so I definitely totally agree with that. I've seen some people talk about 70 plus, and then they own a gym, like stuff like that, where you're like, I don't think that looks like a good deal. I definitely think everybody who is a client should at least ask. Just say like, okay, so how many people do you have? And then what you said about gradients is a very, very good point. I would also include that. That's like, take everything one step at a time. Where it's like, okay, coach, just just train 5 people.
Yes.
Like I do think there's a lot of value in that. And even if it's for free, just going like, okay, let me see if there's actually a time on my channel where I don't even know how this happened. Yeah. Where somehow someone had my phone number. It may have been a time where I could just put it anywhere and just it wouldn't be a big deal. Yeah. I trained someone just for free for like 6 weeks, and I just wrote out just programming for that person genuinely, and it worked very well, and that was it. And it was just for free, and it was like just to test myself out as far as what I can do. Yeah. So I think a lot of that is very useful, and as far as what all coaches should do, man, other than that, I'd say definitely the cap. Definitely the gradients. Yeah. I would say some source for scientific information should just be an absolute need. Yeah. Now, it's one where it gets tricky because I know we've talked about mass before. Sure. Sure. And I believe you don't even use it right now, right? Nope. And realistically, I don't open it too much. Yeah. So it is tricky because when it comes to science, you don't want to be pro-science for the sake of being pro-science. Sure. And not a lot of studies are very relevant. Sure. And that is you
got to be practical. I think the way I prefer to look at it is rather than just like science, just evidence-based. Mm-hmm. Some degree of evidence-based because once again, there can be variance between, I prefer this, you prefer that. This is effective, but this is optimal, but this is optimal for this guy, it's optimal for that guy. But I think if what you're doing, at least we can prove is effective and based on something evidence-based, I think that matters. I think that's important for sure.
Yeah. So exactly. I'd say that, and I would say some gateway to accept contradicting evidence. Yes, and I think that's very important. Yes. So I think something as simple as follow. Actually, I'll make this a requirement. Everybody follow Chris Beardsley. Just that in and of itself. Have that to where every now and then he'll say something where you're like, oh. Okay. Yeah. And just that alone, and then then you go look into it a little bit more on some other studies, things like that. I think having that spark of someone who's not in your bubble, who's just like, okay, so you're on the untested side. I'm going to follow Ed Cohn, Swede, Greg Panora. Like, you can follow those series of guys. Then, okay, I'm on the USAPL side, so I'll follow Joey Flex, Sean, Johnny. It's like, make sure that you do follow some guys who, Brett Contreras, Chris Beardsley, Brad Schoenfeld directly. Yeah. A lot of these guys that YouTubers, at the end of the day, actually get a lot of their information from. Yeah. Like if you follow Brad Schoenfeld, you'll see a Jeff Nippert video and you go, oh yeah, that's where I've seen it. Yeah. And then it's good to have both. Yeah. But I do think it's very valuable to make sure you don't, especially as a YouTuber, I know how we cut off certain things because it just doesn't fit the video. Sure. So make sure you follow someone who doesn't have that incentive always to cut things down.
Sure. Do you think your training career would have been different if you had a coach? Do you think it would have been better or worse?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one. I think overall, in my opinion, I think it would have been worse. Mm-hmm. I think my YouTube channel would have been significantly worse. Yeah. I think my impact on the community would have been significantly worse. Yeah. I think my lifting, when I say worse, that's a week or worse. Mm-hmm. Whereas the other ones, I think, are definitive to me. Yeah. Overall, one of the reasons I have never had a coach is I don't really love when things get too tribal and then the information isn't available to the audience and then it becomes this, this kind of barrier to entry, and then you even start to have inside jokes that are funny to that group, and then it does kind of cut off a certain connection. Yeah. But at the same time, I will absolutely say that if I had a coach during that injury period, that would have objectively helped. I think it's very hard for me to say otherwise. Yeah. Now, there are some coaches where they would give you bro science that could make things worse. Sure. So, I would say that is the one point. But as far as recently, I definitely feel very satisfied. I give myself a good rating on my coaching. And thank you, Johnny. But no, I do feel very satisfied with where I'm at now in my understanding. And it's interesting, though, because it definitely is so much work that you're like, it's like when I made the How to Coach Yourself video, where it's like, then people kind of get that it's like so much that's like, maybe you should just get a coach.
I think it definitely takes a certain type of personality, which you definitely have. And I feel like the cool thing is, especially like from the content perspective and just the knowledge perspective, it forces you to grow more and to learn more and be willing to reach out to others more, I'd say, instead of just having that direct source. But and as far as the content, I get it. And that's why for me personally, like, any coach I've worked with, I always know, like, hey, just so you know, anything that you give me, stuff like that, you have to be comfortable with me showing it on my channel. I always take everybody through what I'm doing, while I'm doing it. And that's why my current coach, Brad, is so great, because we're so collaborative with everything that we do. And it just allows me to be more expansive with that. So because that's one thing I can definitely say. I couldn't work with a coach if they're like, hey, okay, here's your program. You can't show anybody this. Like, oh, well, it could be the best program in the world. It's like I can't work with you. That's 50% of what my channel is. Like straight informed talk and then taking you through my training. So So overall, it's definitely something where I really try not to just immediately assume whatever I did was the best best route that could have been taken. I think there's always just almost an infinite amount of possibilities, which I find very exciting. But then probably the fact that I deeply believe that also helps me coach myself. Because I never feel I'm never like, oh, I have it totally down, which then excites me to like just keep fiddling with it and getting that 1%, 0.5% better. Okay. Question: what are your goals after you total 1,700 pounds? In terms of for total or...
In terms of total, that's it.
Yeah, in terms of total
that's it. 1,700 is it. 1,700 really is it.
Okay.
It's a really good question because I've been in situations where a lot of people push me to then 800 kilos. It will be the next thing. And no, I really don't want to. It's just one of those things where I'm like, no, I have... pushed to 1,500, then 1,600 was the grand total goal. And I was like, that was my lifetime goal since, Josh Hyduck was totaling 1,554, and that was the best 83 in the nation. I was like, damn, I want to hit a 1,600 pound total so badly. And I had that feeling, then it got hurt, and I was like, I guess I'm never going to total 1,600. Then I came back, and then I was able to total, 1,600, and then 1,675 flew just like that, really quickly. And then as far as 1,700, now it's it still feels like it's around the corner. I obviously fully believe I'll hit it pretty soon. I think I'll hit it within the year for sure. And after that, it really is one of those feelings where it's like, I don't know what it gives you after a certain point. I don't know. It's like whenever you come across a lifter with the 500 Wilks, and it just doesn't seem to matter to a lot of people. And it's not, and I have to be careful because it's not just like a popularity contest type of thing. But to me, it's like there always needs to be some sort of grand finale that it builds up to. That's why I really like the comeback where there's a narrative. That's what I'd say. I'm very narrative driven.
All right. Sorry, guys. We got cut off for just a second. But Jonnie, continue. You were talking about how you care about narrative and the importance of that for you.
I would say, especially since powerlifting has no real clear end to the timeline, at some point you have to have your priorities. So my priorities initially were just numbers. And obviously health and everything like that and athleticism did matter. But 1,700 really is the highest number that I've wanted personally, that has been in my mind. And, I don't want to sound like a pussy at this point, but there is something to, when you're squatting 600 plus especially every time you're hitting a, end of the cycle single, and you're going, okay, I squat 625. Now, do I want to squat 300 kilograms? There's a weird feeling to it to where I know how much time and effort it takes to just maintain that lift. Let alone grow in it. And then it can conflict with other, lifelong goals. So for myself, I actually do have a very just clear vision for what I want to do. So I actually do want to focus on vertical leap quite a bit fairly soon. So I want to total over 1,700, focus on vertical leap since I am 28, going on 29 very soon. Then obviously by the time I'm 30, it's that's starting to get to be your shot at just expressing your athleticism to your maximum capacity. And then that's going to go before the strength does. So I will maximize vertical leap and then cut down and then be as healthy as possible. And ultimately, I did get into YouTube, being that lean athletic aesthetic. That was my original thing that I got on with Omar. And I do believe in it. So I do want to go back to that as a 165er.
Jonnie Candito wants to go back to the craftsmanship.
Dude. I will definitely be spending far more time doing upper back work, pull-ups, I would say, like yourself. I saw your 200-pound pull-up. External load of 200 pounds, not adding body weight or anything, which is, to me, ridiculous. But, so I'd like to do that and just really have it is funny because it almost feels abnormal to say, I have goals that are very well-balanced, and it's to me it seems obvious, but then it is funny how abnormal it is to be represented on YouTube. To say, I want to make around the amount of money that scores best on happiness indexes. I don't want to make a lot more than that because I don't care.
Yeah.
I want my index funds to be good and independence to be good, have a family, but I don't want to be rich at all. I don't want to be so strong that then I'm on steroids and cut my lifespan short and become a freak.
Yeah.
Like, I just truly want to check off everything to have a healthy, well-balanced life so then I can be as productive and as creative as possible.
Yeah.
And that would probably be the one point where I'd be willing to get extreme. Where it's like if to be creative and to really do something, like let's say a short film on powerlifting or even on something else maybe way down the road.
Yeah.
If that required me to go do something extreme, like live in some place or do something that's maybe less than ideal, that would be something that I would do. Because I do think the creative endeavor is something that kind of it has a life of its own.
It pushes you a little bit more in a different direction. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's not at all to downplay my passion for powerlifting.
Sure.
It just, to me, you have to, if a sport isn't going to set its own finish line for you, you have to set your own.
Yourself. Yeah.
And your own checkpoints and deviations while still being in it.
Okay, but that makes sense. Bonus question then. So you say you plan to cut down some like to 74s. What do you think you'll total at your first meet as a 74?
Well, I'll be 165 because we ain't.
Oh yeah. You plan on doing?
Yeah, we're not.
Yeah.
I'm done with that. But that's a good question. I would say I'd probably start with the low goal. I'd probably start with 1550 total would be my goal. Okay. Because I believe Wilks wise it's not even that different from like 1660, right? Like probably converts somewhat similar. Something maybe it's 1640 equivalent, something like that. And I do think cutting down, in my experience, being lighter definitely really affects the squat. And the squat's the lift I've made the most gains on recently. So I think it could get to where maybe I'd be squatting like 540 flat. I wouldn't even be surprised if it was hit that badly, honestly. Whereas my deadlift, when I've been very lean, I've hit 635 now with pound plates and one bumper, so totally not the same. But I've hit 635 for 4 with no straps at 168, like very, very lean. And then, that was not that far away from my best sets now.
Yeah.
It's a little bit. Now I hit 660, basically similar context, a little bit better. But so I do think my deadlift strength would hold very well.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So unfortunately, before when I was like cutting down, it was like world record aspirations. I had a video on that, and now it's like now those world records have been kind of ruined.
Yeah.
But I definitely think I could. I think I could end up doing is having a vertical leap focus and deadlift focus at the same time. Okay. Especially since the squat has really that would set up everything perfectly. So my squat's going to be affected the most from the cut anyways.
Right.
And my deadlift's going to retain the best. And then there's too much overlap between squat and jump fatigue.
So it pans out nice. Your squat scales back, but then you can push the vertical leap.
Yeah, and then just try to deadlift like 722 on a deadlift bar 165. Something like, that'd be, okay, that's up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, either way, I'll be happy to have you officially on Team Craftsmanship as far as like just leaning down. That'll be dope. That'll be dope.
It'll be well balanced. Jonnie Candito with an upper body. That's going to happen.
There you go. All right, Johnny. Just a couple more questions here. So, next one. Do you believe powerlifting is the best way to get people into lifting generally, or is there a better way that you believe will get the masses into fitness?
I would say yes and no. I would say you definitely need to meet people where they're at.
Sure.
So I'm definitely a type where I have no problem if someone's just like, look, I just like running, I like this. I do think you can just kind of mix things up to where you meet them where they're at. If they've done a different sport like swimming, I definitely have seen some people where they go from swimming to then maybe they like the rowing machine because it's somewhat similar. Not super, super similar, but somewhat. But I do think overall, if I had to say just on average, I think bench, squat, and deadlift probably is the easiest to standardize, the easiest to spread, the easiest to get into, and the easiest to assess yourself.
Yeah.
So I'd say all of those combined, I think make it easier for most people to get into fitness than probably any other sport. And because it is such a basic sport, such a fundamental sport.
Yeah.
And I do think that's why it's so, like I said, why I'm so motivated, to spread the sport, because I think it can genuinely help society as a tool for more.
Yeah.
Now I do think one issue that I think, actually, I'm kind of curious your opinion on is how we go from people powerlifting to then making sure it's a holistic experience. And I do think we see some of those people where it's like, again, with the rule debates, bench rules, things like that. Sometimes people just kind of get lost into like, why are you doing this in the first place?
Yeah.
So it's like, why if you're doing an extreme arch bench with a very wide grip and you're not close to placing at nationals, I think you do have to have a moment where you're like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Why do I like powerlifting?
Yeah. No, I agree. I know from my experience, and as I've told you before, like I don't just work with powerlifters. I work with people who are just into like general strength training for their health or just pure hypertrophy work, weight loss, whatever it may be. And usually the transition goes that way, right? They get into that first, then powerlifting. But what I have found for me is, and of course this has to do with my personal coaching approach, where I try to take a more holistic view to it and teach them like the things that can be, transferred to life as well, and just the importance of health and aspect. But I really do feel like part of it is going to be the way we approach the idea of powerlifting, which I think is heading in the right direction. I think, you see a lot of people where it's just like a super just big three, hyper focus, and that's it. But I think even stuff that we're doing, and even stuff like, the data-driven strength guys are doing stuff like that in terms of the importance of hypertrophy, moving through different planes and ranges of motion, stuff like that. And it's another reason why I put such a big emphasis on like craftsmanship, the accessory work, stuff like that. Yes, of course, it helps with powerlifting, but I think placing value in, hey, my rows getting stronger, my pull-ups getting stronger, enjoying the training more outside of just the big competition lifts, I feel gives you a more holistic view. And I think that's just a little bit better. And then, of course, it's so cliche, but reminding people like, hey, you're supposed to be having fun with this, right? Like, if you have fun with it, if you enjoy it, you're going to keep doing it. And then as a result, you will still yield the, the benefits of the health and stuff like that. And that's why, like, even if there's someone like you where they're like, hey, I'm going to continue to try to do a meet every year. Or even if there's someone like, I don't want to compete anymore, but I just enjoy training. Yeah. And I think trying to instill that as much as possible. And it's also why I'm a big believer when it comes to my clients as far as if there's two different routes my client can go, right? And one is more optimal on paper, and the other one's not as optimal, but it's still effective for their goals, and they enjoy it more, I will always push that instead. Yeah. Because if they enjoy it more and it still helps them reach their goals, even if they gain or at a slightly slower rate, I think they'll experience less burnout. Yeah. And I think that approach matters, and I think that's why, putting out the informative content and stuff like that and trying to elevate, the coaching scene as well, I feel like it really does help. Because whereas before, I think we're seeing like it's still, of course, people still come in and they're going to look at like Russell, Sean, like the top lifters like that. But I do think we're seeing a shift now where coaches and what we say has a little bit more like respect now and stuff like that, and how we approach things. So I feel like us expressing the importance of that outside of just like a competitive setting, kind of like what you, Sean, and I were talking about the other day, as far as like the competitiveness matters, of course, but that's a small minority of people who are going to be competitive. Yeah, and
that really connects to what you said as far as picking the win that's going to result in less burnout. Yes. That really connects to what I have always said is that if a lifter is not clear on what weight class they want to be, I always push them towards the lower weight class. Yeah. I always do it, assuming they are slightly over the optimal BMI.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And I always push that. And so many lifters, I think, and I hate this because I don't want to say it in a way that disrespects their ability to make their decision. Sure. But I think so many lifters need to hear at least other people caring about that.
Absolutely.
Because I've been to local meets where someone's like, my coach said, relative to my height, I'm supposed to move up a class. Yeah. And they're like, what class is that? And he said 120s. And I'm like, and I was asking him, I was just like, so how long are you going to powerlift? Yeah. A lot of times they won't have an idea. Yeah. So you go, okay, so first of all, you don't know how long you're going to powerlift. This person was like maybe 6'1", maybe 5'11", like definitely not a 6'3" plus person. Yeah. So it's like the first question should just be, is this worth it? Yeah. And first of all, how much are you giving up for powerlifting now? There's probably already a line where you go, okay, I wouldn't miss, a date with my girlfriend for powerlifting. Right. Well, treat your own health with that same respect. Yeah. Yeah. And I do think that message is.
I think the problem is a lot of people would miss a date for their girlfriend for powerlifting now. But
if you're winning nationals, then you get to do it. If you're not, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Exactly. Yeah. And I think part of it is like, and I think you can tell too the difference between people who have gotten into powerlifting where they do have a background in say general strength training or sports or something like that, because it's like. They'll be the ones like where they're like, hey, I'm never letting myself get fat, or I'm not going to do that for powerlifting, or it's not that serious to me. You know what I mean? If they do take the lifting seriously, they care about their composition and things like that. And it's also why I'm really big on people kind of getting involved in more of the general strength training aspect first. But if they do get involved in powerlifting immediately, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing if the structure is correct. If the structure still has you focusing on other movements and accessories and stuff like that, and just general nutrition. And it's funny because you say that about like, you know, people going down to like a weight class, which I generally agree with. But I also have that problem with people needing to go up a weight class, where it's like, dude, you are sickly skinny. Like, you're not letting yourself putting on any muscle because you think you're more competitive in this weight class. And you have the time to be honest, like, dude, you're not going to be competitive.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to maximize your potential for competitiveness, it's probably going to be in this heavier weight class where you have more muscle mass in you.
Yeah, that's actually what Sean and I even spoke about, even when we were just to ourselves talking about with Ashton, is I think one of the things that Ashton Ruska did so effectively is that he did just slowly take what's there. And if he doesn't fill out a weight class totally, that's fine.
Yeah.
And if he's slightly over, that's also fine. Just not forcing your body to just be here. And actually, we even talked about, like, if he won 83s when he weighed, there was a time where he barely weighed over 83, right?
Yeah.
And he did a meet. And it's like, if he won that as a junior, instead did make weight or forced weight purposely to 83, and then won, and then went to Worlds as a junior as an 83, and then it would be expected, well, okay, now it's time to defend your title. Then, okay, let's keep going. And then the more you identify with that, then it's very hard to leave, even if it's not the healthiest thing for you.
I agree.
But, I guess my biggest message would be for local and state level lifters to take advantage of the freedom that gives you. Yeah. It's like, don't try to be as restricted as guys like Sean Noriega.
Yeah.
It's like it's like even what Sean told us, where it's like benching 6 days a week is not a luxury. It's a necessity. Yeah. So it's like, if you don't have to, don't force that. Yeah. Like, you have the advantage of being able to train your vertical leap, train your pull up, train your single arm row.
Yeah.
And do all of that and hit adequate training volume. And it reminds me a lot of early in my YouTube days, where people will be like, there's a debate between Jason Blaha and Sebastian Fitness on hamstring curls. And someone was like, how do I even parse through this when both of them sound very compelling? First of all, to me, it sounded pretty clear which one sounded better. I would say Sebastian in that case, because you made a more anatomical argument. Yeah. But secondly, that aside, the simple answer is do both. Do both and see the effect, and then you make your own decision. Yeah. Odds are you have time to do both. The only people who don't have time to have to actually make the decision that I'm not going to do hamstring curls are the people training maybe 6 days a week, full body sessions, many of them. Right. Training very long. Maybe it takes an hour and a half to warm up on squats. Right. If that's not you, then that doesn't apply to you. You can do all of the above.
Yeah. It's kind of the typical mindset of, like, you know, beginners aren't content with the fact that, hey, you only need, like, you know, do like a 5x3 or a 3x5 or whatever it is and make progress. Like, they want to do all this complex, convoluted stuff, and it's like, I miss those days when I could just do, like, hey, come in, do a quick hour full body workout, and it's like, oh, I'm getting jacked.
And I think we even see at the top, you see a lot of people who do keep it simpler relative to others actually do last longer and do very well. I mean, Russell is able to do a lot of different types of training and win nationals every year. Yeah. And it's fine. Like, I do think there's also this, and same thing with Taylor Atwood, where he takes these, like, longer breaks than I would ever take. Yeah. But then I'm like, not only is he making time for his life in general and his full-time job, he's also doing extremely well. Like, and I think probably better than if he had optimal training, quote unquote, for just a 9-month span and then burns out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely about playing to your circumstances at the end of the day, for sure.
Yeah, and that kind of connects to my goals point, is that it's like, you want to set goals that you know fit your life. If it feels like it's not fitting, then you do need a framing shift, in my opinion. It shouldn't feel like it's not fitting. Yeah. I think to a lot of people does, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's like they try to force it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, and the final question. If you had to delete all of your YouTube videos except 3, which 3 videos would remain?
That's damn. That's a good question. That is a good question. Because now I'm thinking back, like, definitely the how to squat video would stay up because that has affected the most amount of people. And initially, when I wrote out my goals for the channel, I actually do have very explicit, like, mission plan goals since 2012. Written down. I still have it. And getting people to just squat deeper was, like, the second goal, and it was above anything related to powerlifting. So that would definitely be that has to be it. Like, that would be above any meet video or anything with powerlifting itself. The fact that some people have watched that, and maybe you're a CrossFitter, maybe you're a bodybuilder, and then you squat deeper, I think that is just one of the biggest net goods as far as a single video. Probably 6-week explanation. I think I have one 6-week program explanation, and just because of the link in the description. That would be number 2. Squatting deeper, 6-week program. And then number 3 would be tough. Man, number 3 would be very, very difficult. Number 3 is the one that I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Because I had the athletic aesthetic video with Omar, or that Omar saw, and that really helped the channel, and I think that was a good message. But at the same time, there are some messages where they're good, but I think a lot of people would pick up on that regardless. I think the idea of being athletic and into powerlifting, I think is fairly intuitive. Whereas, like, when I made the How to Squat video, I remember that was a time where it was like, no, really the most popular video was awful. And that was when, like, it was very common for us. Like, no, you don't squat super deep.
Yeah.
This is tough. I'm going to have to, like, spend, like, 10 seconds on this. Because I'm thinking of every video I've ever done. This is very difficult.
Yeah. That's why I saved it for last.
Yeah. It's like what videos, what categories of videos are you thinking?
Any. Just any. Yeah. Because I see, like, the first 2, it seems like you chose those because of how beneficial they've been to the viewer. Yeah. And you can even choose your third one based off of one you just really enjoy making. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I was just thinking that. I was thinking I could go... No. See, I was thinking I could go 2015 Worlds because that was definitely, like, one of the biggest spotlights on my channel. But I really don't... I really don't think so. I don't think that's one that I would want to keep up. I would say... Man, there has to be a collab one where I'm like, no, that was the one. Powerlifting comeback, that one.
Okay.
Yeah, that one for sure. Okay, I got it. Yeah, maybe you could edit to cut that.
Yeah,
because the powerlifting comeback was definitely the one. Because I think the fact that first of all, I spent a lot of time editing it, but then as far as talking about risk assessment of, like, okay, or probability, like, what are the odds that I'm going to be able to make this comeback possible? And I remember, I edited on that, like, okay, if I give it 6 months, it'll be, maybe 20%. If I give it a year, it'll be maybe, 45%. And then if I give it 2 years, it'll be something like 90%. But then if I give it 3 to 4 plus years, then it'll be like 99.9%.
Yeah.
And I still remember editing that where I was like, then what's the 0.01%? And then that was if I got cancer in the meantime. And the reason why that was so funny to me is because there was a time, in between time, where I had a panic attack where I legitimately thought I had Hodgkin's lymphoma because I was just a lot more paranoid about a lot of things. Yeah. And I did have a swollen lymph node for, like, far too long. Yeah. And I had a negative reaction to alcohol, which is, it's obvious looking back. It's like, yeah, because it's just alcohol. But then when you're reading stuff and when you're in that mind space of I'm super fragile and I have had this for over 2 weeks, where it's like that for like 4 weeks, where I'm like, why is this happening?
Yeah.
And, like, sensitivity to alcohol is, like, very specific to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So I was fully committed to that.
Yeah.
And then I had a bunch of negative reactions. And so I think videos like that where it's humor, but it's such a raw place that humor comes from, I think that would definitely be the fitting third one. And hopefully, that's an inspiring type video that it's like, I showed the time when I missed a 455 high bar squat for a single. And that was my competition style squat at that time. I literally missed a 455 squat. And then, now I squat 625.
There you go. No, I'm impressed. I'm impressed. Like, I figured you'd be able to give 2, and I had a guess of what 2 of them might be. Had no clue what you'd pick for a third. I didn't know if you'd be able to come up with the third one.
Yeah,
so
that was definitely it.
Thank you. To you, sir.
Yeah, like there are some videos where I do really, really like I'd say would be like fourth would be like Red Dead Redemption video, that parody.
Yeah.
Just because that was really fun. That took so much time. That took like to get the sun rotating in the background while I was holding out like chalk and then the.
Yeah. All right, man. So that was pretty much the last question. I really enjoyed all of your answers very thoroughly. Like I said, I think it's cool because, like, we really spent this one thing almost the past week and a half together, and I still learned so much just in this time frame, like this short time talking talking with you right now. I'm pretty sure, like, subscribers or they are from my channel or came from your channel to watch this. I've learned a lot about you as well. So I appreciate you taking the time. Appreciate your openness and transparency, and I really enjoyed this, man. I'll have to, and it's cool because like I said, I'm very surprised that outside of, like, the podcast on Two Lights that you've never been on an interview like this. So I thought it was cool to kind of have the roles be reversed for you. You get to kind of chill, be comfortable, and just enjoyed the questions.
And it did go a little bit deeper, like especially as far as motivation and generally. I think the only issue that we didn't touch on was talking about Isaac Newton's religious beliefs. That was like about the only thing. Everything else we've just about touched on.
Yeah.
That's what's it's really interesting to talk about. It's always weird to talk about personal things mixed in with this because, of course, I'm not someone who's super transparent, which makes it cool, I think, when I do. And then it's like, and then that's it. And then I lay back, and then next time I do it, I'll have like some other things that I want to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think it flowed very well. So once again, I appreciate you taking the time. You have anything that you want to say, for the channel or anything like that? Any closing thoughts?
I would say, first of all, hopefully people really watch for the meets I do, even if they're not in the USAPL.
Yeah.
I'd say that would be one thing, to still care, even if it's not necessarily at Raw Nationals. And overall, the 7-week program's coming. Candito 7-week program. Make sure to download that for free when it's out within 8 months. For sure.
There you go.
And that's it. And subscribe if you haven't already, because there's always some people who aren't subscribed, even who watch my own channel. Have you ever checked the split where it's like 60-40 not subscribed?
No, you go a little bit deeper into the analytics than I do, I'm not going to lie. Yeah.
I judge those people just slightly.
They're watching but not subscribing.
Yeah.
No, but awesome, man. Well, once again, I appreciate you so much. Thanks for being on the channel. Guys, if you have not already, make sure that first of all, subscribe to your book, but make sure that you also subscribe to Jonnie here. Like I said, I plan to try to do more videos like this one. I'm not necessarily always going to be this long, but as if you guys go back and watch my very first YouTube video, I talked about the fact that aside from putting on foreigner content, I wanted to try to foster that sense of community again within fitness YouTube, as far as the collaborations and everything like that, which to me, this is a big part of doing that. So hopefully I'm able to do more stuff like this, bring other people onto the channel. In fact, there's people that you guys would want me, if you guys like this type of format, like this type of interview, you want me to interview more people, then leave those people in the comments down below. But other than that, once again, thank you, Jonnie. Guys, that is it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, go in the comment down below, let me know what you did. If not, leave a comment down below, let me know what I can do better. Like the video, share, subscribe, keep it simple, specific, scientific. I'll catch you guys later.
I'll flip somewhere.